me a second just to share my wisdom. Up on his canvas, Picasso can paint a better picture. Just while styling, profiling like gonna take it with you. It got me watching my kids like I'm the babysitter. Looking at all my children like it's a soap opera.
We
Just
are
cracking
here right now in the Welcome Center, located here in Helena, West Helena, in Phillips County, Arkansas, my hometown. Now, at this location here at the Welcome Center, it will be the southern tip of Crowley Ridge. Now, I don't know if a lot of people from the city or from Arkansas know anything about the rich history of Aboriginal copper-colored America, but we're going to take a journey through history, through time, and break down and decode a lot of things that they don't want to expose. The truth about Black Indians.
Hey now everybody, welcome back. Welcome to another presentation of understanding the philosophies of our wisdom. I am the one known as Galathiel. I hope all is well and whatever that you seek finds you the same. So in this video, I'm going to go into breaking down the atom theory I proclaim as a body of people. Adam being the son of the Father, Father of creation, makes him, or them, I should say, because Adam will represent a body of people, as a son of God, children, God's children. And they would be the North American Aboriginal, Indians, and the Egyptians. You can consider, in further detail, one would be Cain and one would be Abel. But I'll go into that concept in another episode. But here I'm going to focus on just Adam as a body, and I'm going to go into detail about that. So, and just like I said, we're spiritually split into three-dimensional beings, from our natural identity and history being turned into a materialistic version of itself to benefit modern man in the materialistic world. Okay. Now, according to the understanding of ancient Indian religion / Egyptian mythology, which is quite similar, just with different points of view, but clearly the same understanding. Today, we're going to examine ancient Aboriginal Mississippian people of the Mid-South who, when the Spanish arrived, said that they saw Greek gods in bronze. Okay, the landscape and alignment of the tribes, sister cities, their ethnicity and spiritual beliefs, and how they might have identified as a nation in what is known to the archaeological community as the Center Ceremonial Complex. Later on, the Bible Belt, then later the Chitlin Circuit. What better way to manifest the world the way you see it than to give your understanding of it to God's people, his children, who already manifest his power through their nature. Remember, a mound is for the womb, child, mother. Okay, some people that's, obeying Mother Nature. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to coexist or be a part of the all, and then pyramid will represent mind of man, trying to be like the Father. So you have a group of people that's identifying with the nature of light, and then a group of people that's identifying with the power of light. So that's my whole difference in them being represented as a body of Adam, but the difference will be Cain and Abel. Like one representing Cain, that would be the Egyptians, and then Abel would be those that are aligning themselves with nature. So located in the Mid-South, the Mississippi Delta, you have a place called Phillips County, Arkansas, located right directly in the center of central Mississippi Valley, known as the Delta. Now they have a museum here, located downtown Helena, Cherry Street. The city is divided into two cities, actually. Um, One is Helena and one is West Helena. And the way that it's established is pretty similar to the way that Egypt was Hellenized by the Greeks. Like the way the Greeks came and Hellenized Egypt is basically how the Spanish and French colonists evangelized and Christianized what is known today as Helena, West Helena, which at that time when the French got there, the people called it Ark and Sea. That's what the Quapaws, the Indians that were there when the French got there. But before the French got there, the Spanish came in the 1500s and saw a totally different group of people. So here is this. I took this photo in that museum, Delta Cultural Center, downtown Cherry Street in Helena, Arkansas, right directly across from a levee that protects, the city from the Mississippi River. It talks about the Indian presence that was here when the French got here. Now, this mule, has this quote from the Quapaw chief at the time, Chief Heckerton, in November 1824. And he says, the land we now live on belonged to our forefathers. If we leave it, where shall we go to? Since you have expressed a desire for us to remove, the tears have flowed copiously from my aged eyes. To leave my natal soil, and go among red men who are aliens to our race, is throwing us like outcasts upon the world. Have mercy, send us not there. So he basically is disassociating himself with red men. That's how we grew up, identifying Native Americans as Indians. Commercially they'll talk about, the red men, red man tobacco and all kind of other things like that. But he's not associating himself with red men. He says, he don't want to leave his native soil and go among red men. So I was wondering, like, why isn't he saying he's a red man? Isn't he Indian? And if you look up to the right, I got a picture of a group of Osage men that was took in 1865. Now, by the late 1600s, when the French arrived, this is some of the main points from this excerpt that's up under his quote. Now, I got some of the main points, and I want y'all to look at this. It says, by the late 1600s, when the French arrived, many of the Indian groups that previously dwelt in the Delta have been wiped out or scattered. So the people that was there before they were there, supposed to have been wiped out or scattered about. And when I think of wiped out, I think of brainwash. And you're going to see why I said brainwash when they say wiped out. The Delta now predominantly Quapaw. Okay? But now they're predominantly Quapaw. Their homeland is called Ark and Sea. The Quapaw frequently clashed with the Delta's other major Indian groups. Now, it said that their homeland is called Ark and Sea. That's what the Quapaw called it. Ark and Sea. Ark, there will be fire, all right? And sea will be water, all right? And they're already in what is known as the Mississippi Delta. So if these are twin, cultures, coming from two different perspectives, like I said before, the American culture of Adam, representing the body of people, this would be those of the nature of light. So they're going by the nature of light. And the Egyptians will represent the power of light. Okay, so over here they're building mounds because they're under the mercy of Mother Nature. You know what I'm saying? And over there, they're building pyramids because they're under the rulership of the Father's wisdom of heaven and earth, which over here they are, but I think that they're more obeying, you know what I'm saying, the laws of, you know what I'm saying, the universe and that are within nature of vibration, because it's more avatar like over here. But not getting off track, I'm just pointing out these things real quick. So Arkansas, like I said, there will be fire and water, and are already in the delta. Okay, and in the Quapaw, those that are now there, so they frequently clash with the delta's other major Indian groups, the powerful Osage, who dwell to the north, and the Chickasaw from the east of the Mississippi River. Outnumbered by rival tribes, the Quapaw greet the 17th French explorers, missionaries warmly. So they was happy to see them French missionaries, because they were like, whew, we can, join forces with somebody, or someone can help us. They got us outnumbered, they got us beat, and for somebody to outnumber y'all, that means that they were there before y'all got there, or they have a deep-rooted history there, way more prevalent than these people. And as you can see, they would be the red men that he's talking about. When he said he don't want to go among red men, they're sure pretty darker than him, because he's not associating himself as a red man. And at the bottom, I have a map of those Indian tribes at that time that were dominating that area. But as you can see, that map, it shows the Quapaw, the Osage, the Caddo, the Tunica, the Chickasaw. I think all of this is politically correct, you know what I'm saying, to keep from identifying predominantly, Indians of a certain sector that was in, this particular location. And the reason why I say that is because it's a map that obviously predates this one, that doesn't talk about the Quapaw having a presence there at all. It was a whole nother, different group of tribes that were there, that were more identified as Tunica people, but they had a Osage type of belief, and I'm finna show that here in this next segment. But my point is, like, why would this clearly a Native American, and he's different than, like I said, a Native American is an indigenous Indian. An Aboriginal American is an autochthonous Indian. He said he don't want to leave his natal soil. So let's go into this indigenous, right? I'm saying that he is indigenous and they are autochthonous. Indigenous mean, one, originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, or and native. With the semicolon, it means and or. So originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, and native. Two, of people. Very important, of a people, inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists. So of a people. And its origin, from indigena, a native. So a native. English, indigene. Indigenous, us. Mid 17th century, from Latin indigena, a native. Right? A native. So let me show you the word autochthonous. Now, autochthonous, check this out, of an inhabitant of a place. So not of a people, of an inhabitant of a place. So, not of a people, but of someone that's from a particular place. Indigenous rather than descended from migrants or colonists. So, they're before migrants or colonists. You see, the indigenous person, they originate or occurring naturally in a particular place, native, before the arrival of colonists. But an autochthonous person is before migrants or colonists. Indigenous to a particular environment, habitat, or geographical area. 2, of a disease originating in the geographical area where the patient lives, locally acquired, of a pathological process or formation remaining in or confined to its site of origin within the body, of a deposit or formation formed in its present position. Now the origins is English auto, self, Greek kathon, earth, us. So basically meaning self, the earth generated this particular individual, as opposed to the area. So not the area, but the earth itself in that area. And this can be explained by the two different terms, aboriginal and native. So like I said, these Osage men, they will be autochthonous aboriginals, while this Quapaw man is a indigenous Native American, the modern immigrant, or the modernly recognized immigrant version of what an American Indian was at that time. So Native, we're Aboriginal. Go to this first, but we gonna break it down, y'all. Okay, Aboriginal. I told you these black ones over here, our ancestors, they were Aboriginal. You're never gonna hear these terms, commonly referring or referencing what we know as Indians, because they want you to recognize the indigenous Native American, not the autochthonous Aboriginal. The autochthonous Aboriginal was the first ones they saw, the first ones they wrote about, the ones that they tried to, recognize and accept and market and promote and push is the indigenous Native. The ones they try to suppress, don't talk about, don't acknowledge, misconstrue, misinform their children are the Aboriginal, are the autochthonous Aboriginals of North America. Right here it says Aboriginal, relating to the indigenous peoples of Australia or their languages. Clearly, every continent, most continents starts off with an Aboriginal race. It's not just, one of them. There are numerous continents with an original autochthonous race that are called Aboriginals. They just, like I said, politically and nationally recognize the Australians as being labeled as Aborigines, but there are clearly other continents with Aboriginal races who are autochthonous to that continent. 2, inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists, indigenous. So that means inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists and indigenous. So before the colonists and before this indigenous native got here, these aboriginals were here. And it was some aboriginals in the place where they're already at before they got there. And that, just like I said above, when they're said relating to the indigenous peoples of Australia, clearly there are other places that have aboriginal races, the aboriginal populations in Southeast Asia. So not just Australia. So if an Aboriginal is someone that's there before a colonist or an indigenous person, then what does native mean? Because an indigenous is native. See, he don't want to leave his native soil. They're untouching. They ain't going nowhere. That's why they outnumber him. He said he don't want to go around them. They like aliens to their race. They don't know where they come from when they're basically the alien, you know. But it all has a clear metaphysical understanding, thanks to, you know, time advancing and most of us, you know, being attracted to learning or, you know, education itself, you know. Those of us that descend from holy men, we probably got a natural understanding to or comprehension to this type of stuff that takes deep understanding and insight and intuition or whatever. But I get it or whatnot. So yeah, the word native, a person born in a specified place or associated with a place by birth, whether subsequently resident there or not. So whether they reside there or not, they associating with that place by birth because they were born there, basically. So associated with the place or circumstances of a person's birth. Phrases: go native. Of a person living away from their own country or region, abandon one's own culture, customs, or way of life, and adopt those of the country or region one is living in. So yeah, that's what native mean. Go native. Okay, he's a Native American. Go Native American. Because just like it says down here, by the late 1600s, when the French arrived, many of the Indian groups previously dwelt in the Delta have been wiped out or scattered. So the ones that was the Delta now predominantly Quapaw. So the Delta was now filled with Quapaw. At first, it wasn't filled with Quapaw people, filled with some other people, and they believed just like they believed in the same thing that these people believe. So that's why I don't even believe that, you know, as a tribe, they were, that you can call these men Osage, because Osage was the type of spirituality that the copper color Indians believe in. The Aboriginal Autochthonous Indians of the Mississippi Delta believed, had an Osage type of belief. They believed in Wakanda, the great spirit. They were the children of the middle waters. And I'm going to show that, you know what I'm saying? I just think that when the conquerors came over here, these colonists, you know, they wanted to, you know, basically, you know, itemize and, you know what I'm saying, categorize, you know, people as such, and those that they couldn't contain, they just let them have it and, you know, categorize them as what they follow. Because Quapaw and Caddo, you know, they are more of a indigenous native type of stock, as opposed to these Osage, these Chickasaws, and these Tunicas. The Tunica had most of all this region. You know what I'm saying? They're down here because they started moving down south once the church started, you know, claiming a lot of this territory. You know, once the church started claiming a lot of this territory and, you know, evangelizing a lot of these tribes that were here, a lot of them, you know, came together and started mobilizing down south, and that's how they settled in Louisiana. But mostly of all of this were Tunica Indians, and they had an Osage type of belief, and I'm going to show that. And just like it says over here, it said go native. So a Native American is somebody, a person living away from their own country or region, abandon one's own culture, customs, or way of life, and adopt those of the country or region one is living in. Entranced by this vision of social harmony, he begins to go native. So he come from somewhere else, intrigued. So now, why would someone be rather, autochthonous than um, indigenous, or why would someone be rather indigenous than autochthonous? And this would, make a clear picture of what we're dealing with as American people. The modern day Native American and the modern day Aboriginal American. So why would they label us these terms? It's because of this here. The term indigenous tends to be used for people who are already marginalized, while autochthonous is generally reserved for people who are dominant in a given area but fear future marginalization. So what does marginalization mean? Okay? Marginalized, of a person, group, or concept treated as insignificant or peripheral. So marginalizing someone is like putting them in the rear view, making them look like they're from an old world. They're in the past. That sounds very much like uh, American black people today. Like we want to be relevant. Like you see my grandmother here with these rollers in her hair, identifying as black, but she clearly comes from an Indian ancestry, but she's identifying as black because the Indians that she come from didn't want to be put in the past. They wanted to be relevant. They wanted to be in the present. And I'm pretty sure that's because they didn't go for what they want to call Indian country, and they stayed on their homeland. And this land in particular, Arkansas, what the French said the Quapaw called as Arkansas, all right? And the Quapaw, from what we're concluding here with these definitions, will be considered as a Native American and not an Aboriginal American, because he will be indigenous to the land, not autochthonous. He comes from a people. The autochthonous people that's there, by the time the French recognized the Quapaw as being Native Americans, the previous Indians that were there 100 years earlier, the Aboriginal autochthonous Americans, tribes, have already been evangelized and Christianized, which modernized them and made them be relevant. So from that point on, they will be, considered black. This is a map. Oh, my bad. Okay. These two maps right here. Okay. This is a map of the mid-south, in the 1500s. This is when the Spanish got here. When the Spanish got here, this is what the map looked like, with the tribes that were there before the Quapaws came, or before it was predominantly Quapaw in that particular area on that other map. As you can see, two totally different groups of people. They don't even show them types or whatever. They don't say nothing about Quapaw right there. Even down here, you don't say nothing about no Quapaw people. So, all right here, this was Tunica. But I'm going to show you that the Tunicas had an Osage belief. Tunica, well, I would say some of those Tunica tribes shared the Osage belief. I'm going to say some of them. We're going to go into some of these tribe tribal names here. Well, I'm gonna go into the main ones of Helena, West Helena, like I was explaining earlier, to show you the tactics of when the Greeks Hellenized Egypt, how they basically, the Greeks' descendants are the Europeans, how they basically did the same thing over here to similar territory. When they saw that this was similar territory, like Egypt, they conquered it the same way they conquered Egypt. And I'm basically going to show that. They basically left the same mark, the same identity, the same tactic. They was basically looking at the same kinds of people, just a different, character or nature or perspective. So if you look at both of these maps, like I said, over here you have the map from the 16 to 1700s, having it predominantly Quapaw, where modern day Phillips County and Lula, Mississippi, and Tunica is. And in the 1500s you had this whole area predominantly belonging to the Tunica Empire. So when it says that by the late 1600s, when the French arrived, many of the Indian groups that previously dwelt in the Delta have been wiped out or scattered. This is scattered. When this trail here, this is scattered. Wiped out is to me is brainwashed, and I'm gonna show y'all that. So this is the map, like I said, once again, and this is a report, archaeological report number 18, the proto-historic period in the Mid-South, the 15th through the 1700s. This is what this area was like in the 15th to 1700s. So if you from here in the Delta, look at that, the St. Francis River, Pakaha, Koski, all of this is significant. This is the river right here, and this is significant why these tribes are being named the same thing, because it's a certain type of coordinates, it's a certain kind of alignment. All of these particular locations are cosmically positions and picked to be placed and built here. A lot of these tribes right here left their mark by the landscape and the build of the cities. Most of the modern day cities in this area are built on top of Indian landscaping, because our whole city here in Helena, West Helena, is like geographically and placed and built very funny. Almost every house is on an elevated platform. In Helena, everything is built on mounds and high ground and hills and stuff. And then in West Helena, it's built in like an embankment in bowls or whatever. Every neighborhood is like that's close to the river, that's close to you getting to the bridge. In West Helena, it's like you have neighborhoods that are built inside of embankments, as if you are going down inside of a bowl. And most of the houses in the embankment are built on either flat ground or on elevated platforms. And just to get up out of the area or the neighborhood or whatever, you would have to drive up out of the embankment. So it would be like in a bowl, as opposed to the opposite side, the other city being built in the sky. So I'm going to explain all this stuff because it has very spiritual meanings and significance to it. And this is why the church or the Christian faction, the evangelists, the Christians, Baptists, Presbyterians, they all set up shop right here in these particular locations in the Southeast and Mid-South. But this is us talking about the Mid-South because it's the Delta, and the Delta is identical, basically the same thing as the Delta in Egypt. So this is the proto-historic period in the Mid-South, 1500s, 1700s. Proceedings of the 1983 Mid-South Archaeological Conference, edited by David H. Dye, very credible source. If you know anything about Indian archaeology, you're gonna always find this name. And Ronald C. Brister, Mississippi Department of Archives and History, Jackson, Mississippi, 1986. So I'm gonna go down here to some. Now, I highlighted some parts, and I'm gonna read about them. I'm gonna read the parts that I highlighted. It says the classic problem that any historian faces when he starts to deal with original sources is that he has to try to put himself in the observer's place, while at the same time maintaining a distance from his subject, so that he can filter out the biases of the observer as they affect the reported observations. So you got to put yourself in their shoes, but at the same time recognize what you're looking at, so you don't be, so attached to things that intrigue you, attract you, or bother you. Throw your emotions out the window. And this is how you kind of get this far in research, is by doing this. Just stay on task, looking at the bigger picture. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know who I am. I'm not gonna grab a hold to anything that gets me caught into my sensitivity. I'm trying to learn and observe and get the meaning of why they're doing what they're doing, and the whole purpose of what's the big deal. So this is especially important in dealing with historical sources about people who wrote no history themselves. So you have to observe everything that they're doing and paying close attention to that's what's speaking to you, but what's not written, but it's speaking to you. It has characteristics, it has attributes, it has a certain nature about it, or whatever like that. And if it's reoccurring, and if it's occurring a certain way, you get the picture. You get what's going on. So because the people who were writing their history for them observed them from outside their culture, the documents in the North American case at hand are usually written from a Western European point of view, and it is necessary to know the context of the point of view in order to understand not only the descriptions written by Europeans, but also the cultural context which conditioned their observations. So you got to understand, how the European, the conqueror, the counterpart, you know what I'm saying, the descendant of the power of light, not the nature of light, the way that they see, the world. This is very important, you know what I'm saying? This is coming from overseas, you know what I'm saying? The European, and, Christianity and things of that nature, you know what I'm saying? Not no pot calling the kettle black or anything, you know what I'm saying? The perspective that they're coming from, and the way that they look at the world, and the way that they see everything according to how it's, taught to them. So that's what the historian is saying. In the Southeast, the first Europeans to probe the country deeply were the 16th century Spaniards. At that time, not only the most medieval feudal people, so they love to fight and be barbaric and cause mayhem and rape, pillage, and plunder, but also a people whose prior experience with Native Americans was exposure to the very highly organized chiefdoms of Mesoamerica, which they had exploited in a very specific way. So I highlighted that because the people that ransacked and took over South and Central America, them the same ones that they sent up here to get the ball rolling up here in North America, to pick their spots where to set up shop and all this other type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So if you in tune and you follow, you know what I'm saying,
Go ahead.
Okay. The French showed up 100 years later after the Spanish had already came here. When the Spanish came here, they had already held a Christian service, discovered the two tribes of the city, and Christianized them, basically. What you're gonna see is that when they Christianized these Indians, they didn't have to leave, because the cities that they were dominating in, these two polities, you would see that these were two competing chiefs, and they both had dominant regions. One dominated the region of Pakaha, which is West Helena, and the other one dominated the region of Koski, which is Helena. Right here, located in front of the Mississippi River, in front of one another. A road is blocking the two cities, or dividing the two city towns from one another. This is in coordinates, or in correlation with Osage men and people, and how they divide their villages up from the sky people and the earth people. Now, when the Spanish encountered these people, and after they encountered them, when they held their Christian service, when the French came here, there was some people totally different from the ones 100 years before. But if they held a Christian service and the church meant to evangelize them or Christianize them, why would you have to, I guess, repopulate a city that's already populated? If you can get it up and running with souls that's already there, once you Christianize them, whatever it was, it's not there no more.
City of Helena, West Helena had posted on this website called the City History. But when I started doing research on this stuff on the Aboriginal peoples of the Delta, they took this article off the website. But luckily, I recorded this video of me reading the article, and I'll play it for you guys in a bit. But as you can see, if you go to that website that I was talking about, the City of Helena, West Helena, they have an article about the history of Helena, West Helena, at that time of the 1500s, when the Spanish was doing their exploration of the Southeast, and Hernando de Soto's visit to modern day Phillips County. When I started doing research on the peoples of the original Indians of Phillips County, not the nationally recognized Quapaws, they took this article down.
This is an article from the City of Helena, WestHelena.com, and it talks about Arkansas's only Mississippi River port, but it tells the history of the city in the Delta, the days of explorer Hernando de Soto, because he was the first white man to set foot on this land.
Right.
So, and I mean, what I mean by white man is a man of light, a Christian.
Right.
A foreigner. And it says, our city began as a small town along the mighty Mississippi River called Helena. However, our city is centuries old, dating back to the days of explorer Hernando de Soto, when he crossed the Mississippi River near Fry's Point in 1541. He the first white man to visit what is known as eastern Arkansas, observe a flourishing, Aboriginal American civilization, including Koski and Pakaha Indians. Now you're gonna see why I'm correcting him and why I'm changing the word, because of the way he described this tribe of people, and the way that they describe, or the way that the Quapaw people is seen or looked at. It said the city now known as Helena, West Helena, Arkansas, is situated in Phillips County,
with the protecting hills of Crowley Ridge to the west, which is up against West Helena, and sometimes friendly, menacing Mississippi River on the east, which is up against Helena. It was a natural location for Indian tribes to choose for their homes because it was a more spiritual and astrological alignment. Um, During the 16th century, two tribes were known to be in the county: Koski south of Helena and Pakaha north of the present city. The Koski braves, described by Spaniards as tall, strong Greek gods in bronze. But I want to read you this sign that's here in the city of Helena, West Helena, located at the Welcome Center, right when you cross the bridge from Lula. You know, the city has a bridge that connects it to Lula, Mississippi, and that bridge connects to a road that split the two cities, you know, one from across the other. As you cross the bridge, you know, you make a right when you coming from Mississippi, you know, that's Helena. You make a left, that's West Helena. If you leaving out, you know, you'll be, you know, going from your right, where you'll be catching the bridge to your right, and if you from Helena, you'll be catching the bridge to the left. So both of the cities are directly positioned across from each other, and they were positioned like that by the ancient peoples that, you know, geographically made the city the ways that they are. And you're going to see what I mean by that. So this sign at the Welcome Center, it says Helena, Arkansas. At this site on the southern tip of Crowley's Ridge, Indians of the Hopewell culture lived about 500 BC. Evidences of their settlement still remain in mounds nearby. In 1541, when Hernando de Soto crossed the river near here, he found the Koski and Pakaha Indians and held the first Christian service west of the Mississippi River. So the first Christian service, the first association with Jesus of any kind on this side of the river was held in modern day Phillips County. So they were the first Aboriginal Indians to be Christianized. And there's a reason why they were Christianized, or, you know, evangelized, that they would say. I think over here they were more reference to evangelizing, and to the east it was more of Christianizing. And there's a metaphysical reason, there's a biblical reason, and a philosophical reason to that. I'll go into as I, you know, go through these references in this history. But what I would like to go, or what I would like to add, first off, in this discussion, from a philosophical standpoint, religiously, most of the colonists or the settlers that got here were very religious. They were very spiritual. And so the Bible, you know what I'm saying, or just, you know, the Christianity faith in general was more like a spiritual map of the world, so to speak. So they associated, you know, the acts or the things that were occurring in the people that they were looking at in the Bible with a spiritual people that manifested the natures that they saw. So with that being said, the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. Over here, well, down here in the Mid-South, this area was known as the Center Ceremonial Complex for North American Indian cultures. This is where their faith or their spiritual belief was practiced the most, right here in the Mid-South and Southeastern complex. And it was known as the Mississippian complex because they all shared a correlation in the spirituality. And most of the ceremonial practices, as far as archaeologists and historians are concerned, happen in these delta-rich regions. When I say rich, I mean rich soil and agriculture. In these delta-rich regions of the Mid-South, this is where most of their stuff was practiced spiritually. And to the west is where most of the priests hood was located. To the east is where the chiefs was mostly located. So theoretically, from a spiritual standpoint, this would be like, the sun rising in the east. So you have the chiefs or those that see the coming of the sun. And to the west is where the sun will set. This is where the suns or these signs will manifest. So you have divine holy men over here, and your chiefs over there. But that's just, if you get into it like that. But moving on now, the evangelized and Christianized theory is, so like that these people are more inclined with the angelic nature of the Bible, and these people are more inclined with the, Christ-like nature of the Bible, where they have a leader and a Messiah, so to speak. But all of, the Indians kind of, really manifested the nature of what the Bible was expressing, just through their character and their personalities and their intellect. They kind of, resembled what was being acted out in Scripture. So these evangelists and, missionaries, evangelized and Christianized, in specific locations predominantly, for a reason. I think to cover all ground of, their intellect. So they'll manifest the nature of prophecy, materialistically, the way that they, saw it from the biblical perspective. But I'll clearly show that I show more research in detail.